Roman Reigns is a babyface without even being on TV. We are 2 weeks away from an incredible dream match and another one that's already in the books. It's a loaded show. Squared Circle Radio is on the air. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. Like, subscribe, all the things. We would appreciate it very, very much. I'm your host, Mr. Podcasting Chris Belcher. That is the young buck, Andy York. And Andy, we were talking before we hit record, man, it's one of those times where we're going through all the TV shows and we're saying, what do we talk about? What do we talk about? Well, we can't leave that out, can't leave that out, can't leave. It is a loaded reaction show this week.
Yes, it is. It is a loaded reaction show for sure. We're still coming off of WrestleMania. We're right before the draft coming up this week. AEW Dynasty, which was fantastic as well. So we're at that time where it seems like wrestling should be slowing down, and it's not slowing down at all. No, it is not. It is full throttle all the way, all the time. And we were worried about it, man. That was your biggest fear coming out of WrestleMania. And, man, they have not let us down. Any company, really. AEW Dynasty put on a great show. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to talk all about Raw, all about SmackDown. First of all, disclaimer, we apologize that we are a day late on this episode. Sometimes life gets in the way. Things happen. But, man, Andy, if we don't record, if we don't post things, we're totally left in the dust, man, because like we said, it's not slowing down. The draft comes up this week. Next week is WWE Backlash. Before you know it, we're looking at the King and Queen of the Ring tournament in the same weekend as AEW Double or Nothing. Just everything is just going at 100 right now, and we're just doing our best to keep up, man. We're trying our best, but we are we're starting to sink a little bit because there's just so much happening all over the place that you can't not talk about at the same time. So we say it all the time: support the show, support us as much as we can, because if we could ever get this as a full-time gig, that'd make this a lot easier than it is right now. But listen, I'm not going to complain because wrestling in-ring and storylines and everything else is as hot as it has been in a long, long, long time. And we are benefiting from it a lot right now. Yeah, we definitely are, and we benefit a lot more from it, like Andy said, if this was a full-time gig. So, support the show. Best way to do that, buy us a t-shirt, prowrestlingtees.com/squared circle radio. Like the video on the YouTube channel, subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing. It helps us out a whole lot. We would appreciate it. And you've been looking at the YouTube viewers. A lot more viewers have subscribed than not. Those numbers are ticking up, but we want to keep those numbers going up. Lots of people still viewing the show that haven't hit that subscribe button. Just make sure you do that. We would appreciate it very, very much. Man, before we get into AEW, I just want to bring up two things in the world of professional wrestling that has happened over the last week. One of those things being Matt Cardona getting injured last weekend, I think it was, I believe it was GCW. I don't remember for sure. I think so. Torn pec. We know from Cody Rhodes having that. It's about 6 to 7 months out. But, man, the reason I want to bring it up, number one, thoughts and prayers to Matt Cardona. But I know we say stuff like that all the time. We wish these wrestlers well. Obviously, we'll talk about Seth Rollins here in a little bit as well, who has announced he has had surgery. He's out for a while. But I wanted to bring Matt up just because he doesn't work for any of the major companies. He is literally the hottest indie wrestler, arguably, right now on the planet. And he's out for 6 to 7 months. And I don't say this as a joke, man. Like, you got to hope the guy has great insurance, because none of these big companies are paying for this surgery and this rehab and all that. And Matt is hustling and hustling. I mean, I'm sure he's a smart business guy, as we've seen with all of his other, wrestling figure lines, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, all that kind of stuff. But, man, a lot of people, a lot of wrestling fans just might not realize how tough that could be on Cardona if he's not smart with his resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the major downfalls of independent wrestling is you're not under a company contract where, your WWEs, your AEWs, probably even, I haven't really looked into much, but even like TNA, I'm sure will cover a lot and everything else. So you're
you're kind of on your own, which is beneficial because you're able to do what you want to do, create your character the way you want to do it. All of that is great. But you're also on your own on some of this other stuff that's very, very difficult as well.
Yep.
But like you said, he's a brilliant businessman. I mean, his figure stuff is as hot as it's ever been. Probably his YouTube stuff is always fantastic as well. So he's definitely got himself taken care of. But it just adds more appreciation to these independent wrestlers who have to do a lot more dangerous stuff to get their name out there. But also, if it backfires, they have to take care of it themselves as well, which is a very, very, very difficult spot to be in.
Yeah, it really is. Obviously, he's married to Chelsea Green, who is on the WWE roster. So that I'm sure that helps out some. And Matt's been around the block. He's been injured before, and he's said that he's still going to make his appearances. He just can't wrestle, so he'll be there to sell merch and sign autographs, all that kind of stuff. So Matt will do okay. But it's for those other guys, like we mentioned, that might not be as savvy as Matt Cardona that you have to look at. And you just have to hope that a big injury doesn't totally derail their career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it could go downhill very quickly. But I just want to bring that up. You know, that's something that a lot of wrestling fans don't realize. And I want people to, you know, we always talk about SportsWire Radio using the hashtag All Wrestling Matters. And it really does. You know, whether you're Marseille and Mansois going over to Uganda on the soft ground wrestling. Isn't that so cool, man?
That is so cool. And apparently, like, the thing is now, I think Will Ospreay has bought them a ring and is sending it to them to have. So, like, they're just, you know, we talk all the time about how stupid wrestling community is, like internet wrestling community and everything else. There are times when it's beautiful. And this is one of those times where these guys in Uganda are doing what we love, what we all love, in a mud and in the river and having a great time. And then you see Mansois and Mace out there. Mace, wow, that was Retribution days. But you see them out there and they are embracing it, and it's just that's the beautiful side of it. That's so cool to see.
Yeah, it really is. So All Wrestling Matters. So that's just some awareness for wrestling fans who might not be aware of other things that are going on. Let me tell you something that I am aware of that's going on. We talk about how loaded wrestling is right now. We talk about how there's so much wrestling content that we cannot keep up. We do our absolute best to keep up. If I had room for one more wrestling show in my week, it would be TNA. Bro, some of the stuff that they are doing, that Rebellion pay-per-view last weekend, Matt Hardy showing up, like, dude, like, TNA is turning some heads and doing some stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I think Matt Hardy has even said, like, he's not even signed with TNA. He's there as a free agent, just kind of killing time or whatever. But yeah, like, you've got Moose there. You got my favorite wrestler, Joe Hendry, there, because we all believe in Joe Hendry, and he is fantastic. But yeah, like, TNA is really great right now. I still think it was really dumb of them to fire Scott D'Amore for no reason other than they didn't like the fact that he was as good at his job as he is. So they just kind of pushed him out. But I mean, they're still, I mean, everybody knows how big of a fan I am of, like, Jordan Grace, and she is absolutely, she could be in WWE right now or AEW and be one of the top stars, and she stays in TNA because she loves it there, and it's a great environment. So yeah, TNA is killing it.
They really are. And shout out to my favorite over there, the most professional wrestler, Brian Myers, tag team champion over in TNA with The System and Eddie Edwards and Moose and that faction. So just a lot of good stuff, man. I wish there was more time in the week for me to watch some TNA because I think they're putting out some good stuff. And even though we are delayed a day, I still have not gone back and watched all of AEW Dynasty. I know you have, though, but we're going to break it down. Let's talk about it. Before we do, I mentioned it earlier, SportsWire Radio, our exclusive partner. That is where you can find our show virtually each and every day. And if we're not on there, Tom and the crew has got you served up with all of your sports needs. Baseball is in full swing. We just finished up March Madness. They're talking hockey playoffs, all the things. If you're not a wrestling fan, number one, and you're listening to this show, become a wrestling fan. But if you're a wrestling fan and you want your sports fix, man, for other sports, SportsWire Radio has got you covered. SportsWireRadio.org. That's where you listen live. And we mentioned it earlier, hashtag All Wrestling Matters on Twitter. Make sure you're using that to join the conversation. All right, AEW Dynasty, let's get to it, man. Swerve gets his big night. The crowning moment, new AEW World Champion, Swerve Strickland over Samoa Joe. Man, you know what was really cool? I don't know if you know this or not, but I was looking, was searching around on Twitter, I think it was, is where I saw this, and the jacket that Swerve wore. Did you see about this?
I did, yeah.
So the jacket, for those of you listening who don't know, that he wore to the ring was also worn by the late Jimmy Rave. Now, many of you might not know that name. I didn't know that name either until 2 years ago when I got to interview him shortly before his passing for this very show. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time and you remember that interview, same guy, Prince Nana, bestowed the jacket on both of them. Andy, I had no idea. That was super cool when I found that out.
Yeah, man, that was really cool when I saw that too. And, you know, as the Marvel fan that I am, him coming out as Killmonger from Black Panther, and just, you could tell from the moment of his entrance that this had to be his crowning moment.
Yep.
This had to be the moment that you put the title on him. There's always the chance that Paige could come out and cost them or whatever the case is. But the crowd, I'll say this about the St. Louis crowd, they were hot all night. From the pre-show, not even from the main show, from the pre-show, they were on fire and they did not slow down once. I mean, we got 3 amazing matches back to back to back, and they were as hot for the first match as they were for the last match. And so this crowning moment for Swerve was awesome. The place went nuts. I literally stood up and popped from my seat at my house because I love Swerve. I think him being world champion has been coming for a long time. And I think it was absolutely deserved. We talk all the time about people who deserve it in the wrestling business, and I think Swerve has to put his name right up there as deserving to be AEW champion, because it was an awesome moment.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute, and I'm going to put you on the spot. And I'm not saying that Swerve doesn't deserve the world title. I just look up and down that AEW roster, which is loaded. A lot of guys are out with injury. It's a loaded roster. And maybe it's because I don't follow the product on a week-to-week basis as closely as I should. But help me see why Swerve is the guy for that company right now.
Part of it is he got over super organically. Mm-hmm. And part of it was with the help of Prince Nana and doing the Swerve dances and coming down to the ring and people buying into it and everything else. But I mean, you got to remember when he debuted, when he showed up, when Tony Schiavone brought him out, the place went crazy for him even then.
Sure.
And so he's always been one of those guys that I think, you know, in NXT, he was given a couple opportunities to then call up to the main roster, and Vince McMahon did what Vince McMahon does with NXT rosters and just craps all over him for no reason. And so now he was able to be outside of the WWE bubble, get to do a lot more things that he wanted to do, and embraced it and became, you know, a lot of what the AEW fan base embodies and loves. The reason why they love guys like Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston and, you know, Jay White and all these other guys is they love those guys who probably wouldn't be given a chance a lot of other places, but come in here and absolutely kill it night in and night out. And that's what Swerve did. And he, you know, from his feud with Nick Wayne, going to his dad's wrestling school, going to his house and bloodying him up and busting him open and beating the crap out of him with AR Fox and all of that stuff, to now the fans have been fully behind him. And so he is absolutely deserved that moment. It's a lot of it feels like Kofi Mania, but on a much wider scale, because I think AEW sees potential in Swerve, unlike WWE really saw potential in Kofi during the time and was kind of forced to go that direction in a lot of ways. I think with AEW, they saw the writing on the wall and didn't try to fight it, just embraced it by telling the story and putting him in there with a guy like Paige and Samoa Joe and some of these other guys they put him in there with.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of injuries. A lot of guys got to step up. Swerve got over organically. And it's always good when you go with the guy who gets over organically and is doing the things. I just find it interesting. Like, I don't know that, again, maybe that's the WWE bubble or whatever. Didn't see him as world champion there. But again, not saying that he can't be world champion. I'm just saying that there's a whole lot there to dissect and to figure out and to work through and been placed in the right spot like apparently he is in AEW. Again, not dogging him for winning the world title. I just find it very interesting. You just look back at like the track record of their champions and I don't want to say he doesn't fit. And please, if you're listening to this show for the very first time and you think that I'm going down the race rabbit hole here, I'm absolutely not. So please just get that out of your mind. But it feels, I don't know. I just don't feel like he stacks up to the other AEW champions, but his reign's only, 3 or 4 days. As you're listening to this on Wednesday, he's about to wrestle his first Eliminator match tonight on the show. So I can't judge his reign. I'm just saying that stacked up against the other guys, I don't know. Wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, he fits kind of the mold that like an Eddie Guerrero fit of like a lot of people never would have thought of him being a world champion when he was in WCW.
That's true.
And then he comes to WWE and the fans adore him, the fans love him, and he beats
Brock Lesnar,
one of the most unbeatable men in all of pro wrestling history, in Brock Lesnar. So there's a lot of guys that when they get their moment, they get their moment. And I think this is Swerve's moment. And kudos to AEW for pulling the trigger on it. Cause we talked about it in the past sometimes of kind of dragging it out a little bit too long.
Yep.
But this time they didn't. I think they pulled the trigger at the right time. Now he's got a lot of great feuds. I'm telling you, the first person I want him to feud with is Christian Cage. I think Christian Cage and Swerve for that title with Nick Wayne on Christian Cage's side anyway and all of their history together. I think that's a great first opponent for Swerve to face because I'm telling you, when we get to All In, I can already tell you the main event of All In is going to be Swerve versus Will Ospreay. And it's going to be beautiful when they finally meet up and it's going to be amazing.
That will be a lot of fun. I think you're absolutely right. For those of you keeping track at home, All In is back at Wembley in London this year. And Ospreay got that beautiful homecoming last year when he beat Jericho. So we expect more of the same this year. Speaking of Will Ospreay, man, I know there was a match in between, but let's talk about the dream match that happened as years upon years in the making. Will Ospreay defeating Bryan Danielson. Everybody's saying already this is match of the year, match of the decade. Dave Meltzer has given it 7 stars, even though it wasn't in the Tokyo Dome, yada, 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 whatever. Listen, fantastic match. Just not my cup of tea. But I respect the athleticism that was there, and fantastic. I'll give you the floor for this one.
I mean, listen, there are a lot of matches, a lot of dream matches that don't pan out in a lot of times.
That's true.
This one, from before the bell even rang, the crowd was already, for a lot of big time matches, you can just feel the intensity in the crowd before the bell even rings.
Yep.
And this was one of those moments. The crowd was ready for this one. They were ready to see it. I don't think I've ever heard a "We're not worthy" chant before from a wrestling crowd in the middle of a match, but this was a pure wrestling match. Like, not taking, there's no stories. At the end there is, but during the match there's not stories. The story going into this is kind of the story that all of Will Ospreay's matches so far in AEW have been. There's a lot of best in the worlds in AEW. There's a lot of people who say they're the best.
Yep. And
he's going up against every single one of them to prove that he's the best in the world at what he does in that wrestling. And he has lived up to that. This match had a lot of expectations going into it, and somehow still beat every single one of those expectations, more so than I thought they would. I love the main event of WrestleMania Night 2. and I love this one for completely different reasons.
Sure.
But I still think both of these are match of the year contenders. I probably lean more towards this one because it's in ring.
Yep.
Not saying that Cody Roman wasn't great in ring, because it was.
Right.
But this just had a lot of stuff going for it, and I don't think we're done yet. I think we're getting another one, probably a Double or Nothing. We're running it back one more time, and I don't know what to expect from it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you top this, but they're certainly going to try, no doubt. I know we talked when Bryan Danielson got on the roster that, or at least I remember saying that I thought Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega was the most anticipated dream match in the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
That one happened a couple of times. Now we have this one. From your perspective, go ahead.
You got to throw Danielson and Okada in there too, because that was another one that was highly anticipated, and Ospreay Omega, because that hadn't really happened yet either.
Okay, so of the Danielson matches, you got Danielson. So we'll take it for when Danielson got into AEW. So Danielson Omega, Danielson Okada, Danielson Ospreay. In your opinion, which was the most anticipated dream match for Bryan Danielson to have?
Oh man. I think they all were at the specific time they all took place, which is wild to think about. I think I'm probably still going to go Omega, just because I don't think any of us thought we would ever actually get it.
Sure.
And it finally happened. It would honestly be like if Ospreay and Rollins ever got to go at it. That's a dream match where I don't think any of us ever think we're going to get it.
Right.
But if we ever do, it's going to be highly anticipated and amazing to see at the same time. So I'll probably stick with that one, but the other two are extremely close to it as well.
It's almost like once you get one, it's the snowball effect of the other ones.
Yeah.
Because you would not get the other two if you didn't get the one.
Right.
But that's, again, it's a wrestling fan's dream. For fans of that style, again, I'm not going to sit here and dog it. I'm not going to say it wasn't great. I'm not going to say the crowd didn't just make that match unbelievable and the atmosphere was just insane, because it was. Again, it's just not my favorite. But again, I'm not going to sit here and dog it. It was what it was. Let's talk about the ladder match. The battle for the first ever 3-time AEW Tag Team Champions, won by the right team, in my opinion, the Young Bucks. Not the way I anticipated them winning it, by the help of the return of Jack Perry. Lots of rumors floating around about that, especially after the footage was aired. And Andy, I guess that's why they aired the footage. Maybe we get more clarity this week. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it makes that seem a lot smarter than when we just didn't think that they were going to do it. So
do you think that they aired the footage just in spite of CM Punk, and then the next day, after all the backlash, is when they said, well, you know what, let's just try to bring back Jack Perry?
I think it all happened because of the Punk thing. I think that's when they decided to air the footage and bring Perry back at the same time. And also, I think once they saw the reaction Perry got in Chicago for the New Japan show, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Which surprised everybody. He got cheered in Chicago, which was hilarious. But I think once they kind of saw that, this made it make more sense. And I love that they did this. I think it's brilliant to do this, bring him in. I think I even saw him throwing up the elite symbol, so just put him in the elite as well with Okada and with the Bucks.
That was my next question: is how does the scapegoat Jack Perry character now fit with the EVPs and Okada?
I think it fits well. I mean, I think it fits them perfectly of having him join them, because they wanted rid of Punk, and he is the one that really got rid of Punk was Jack Perry. So I think that plays into it really well. And I think when they showed the footage, I don't think I ever thought this was happening. The closer we got to it and we started hearing some reports and people talking about it, it started to make a lot more sense. I love the fact that he came out in a Sting mask and did it as well.
Yeah, that was funny.
Which was a nice touch. And I'll give them credit. I'll give AEW security credit. They rushed the ring like it was an actual fan. Like they did a great job, and then they revealed the mask and gave him his moment and everything else. Just a perfectly done spot to advance this story even more to wherever we're heading next.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done as well. I don't know if you saw the video that's floated around online of a fan who filmed Jack Perry the whole time he was in the arena. That was pretty interesting too, watching that. But the match itself, leading up to that part, was just a wild Bucks and FTR match, man. I mean, like, Dax Harwood is bleeding like a stuck pig. It was insane, man.
Yeah, and I love that they were doing, like, there was the one spot where I think it was Matt hit a swanton onto Cash through a table, and Dax saw that and was like, oh, yeah, you want to do that? And picked up Nick and power drivered him through a ladder at the same time. And I'm like, this is a car crash ladder match that I paid to see because it's the Bucks and FTR, and I want nothing less than what we got, because it was a car wreck that you couldn't look away from, and it's what they needed to be. And I love the new Bucks gimmick. I think it works really well for them and what they're doing. And I love Okada's gimmick in it as well, because he doesn't say a word and just acts like the biggest douche in the world, and it's amazing. Because I don't know if you've gone back and watched Okada and Pac yet.
No, I have not.
But there's the spot, where he does the Rainmaker pose in the middle of the ring, and he goes out, he does like that, and the camera zooms out. Well, he like built the crowd up like he was going to do it, and when he went to do it, he just flipped the bird to the camera, and the place like booed. We got F Okada chants, everything else. Really just funny. They're doing a really great job of running with the momentum of the Punk stuff and making it work on TV.
Yeah, which is surprising because, if you look at the internet wrestling community, a lot of people, including myself, make fun of them for not long-term booking and not being able to figure it out or whatever. And, for whatever it's worth, they're doing their thing, and it works, and they're getting a reaction, and they're building on it. And you know what? Let that be that, it's working. For the rest of AEW Dynasty, lots of big stuff. You mentioned Omega and Pac. We had Jericho and Hook for the FTW Championship. We had Willow Nightingale beating Julia Hart, I believe so. Toni Storm retained the Women's Championship. Lots of stuff that happened on the show. What else stood out to you?
Yeah, just a lot of really great matches. The 6-man tag between the House of Black and Copeland and Kingston and Briscoe was just a car crash that was amazing to see. Malachi Black spraying the mist and pinning Adam Copeland, which is a great way to. I think we all kind of figured we were heading to Black versus Copeland for the TNT Championship at some point. Great way to get to that point.
Hope so.
Gives him a huge, a massive pay-per-view win for Malachi Black, which we've been wanting to see for a long time.
Yep.
So I really, really enjoyed that. My only complaint from this show, and it's a complaint that I don't think you're going to like, but that's okay, is this show showed me how much AEW doesn't need Chris Jericho anymore. I think his time in AEW is done. And part of it is himself and his mouth and his actions and things like that. And part of it is I think people are done with Jericho and AEW. I think, he did a great job when he first came in, but him beating Hook, I get it for the heel heat and everything else and slowly telling the story with Taz, but Hook should have won this match. Hook should have kept the FCW championship. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here. It'll be interesting to see how Taz gets even more involved if he does. But I think, listen, WWE crowds used to chant this at Big Show all the time, to please retire. And AEW crowd was chanting it at Jericho. So I think it's time to take a break, be off TV for a while, probably jump ship and go back to WWE and finish your career off there and ride off into the sunset there, because I don't think the longer he stays in AEW, I think the worse it's going to get for him.
You're not going to get any argument from me, man. I mean, listen, I'm a big Jericho fan. I love Jericho, but I've been thinking this and not really said it out loud. I've been thinking it for at least a year now that he needs to be done in AEW, and I think done wrestling. I'm not saying he's not putting on decent matches or whatever, but I mean, I would say he was great in the beginning of AEW. He was the absolute perfect first AEW champion. That inner circle story, from heels to baby faces, the whole 9 yards, coming out of the pandemic, great, fantastic, awesome stuff. Be done. After that, let's be done. And he's, kudos to embrace the Lionheart character again and trying to do that kind of thing, whatever. Awesome. You're going to end your career the way you want to, but while there is still money to be made, and while there is still a little bit of good stuff left, please, let's go back to WWE and let's do one more run, and let's just let's be done with it.
And not even like I don't even think necessarily needs to be done wrestling. I just think I think it needs to be done wrestling full time, for sure. I think the one-off special match for a WrestleMania, a SummerSlam, a Saudi show, whatever. Yeah, let's do it. Like him and Cody would be a lot of fun together.
Yep.
Him and Seth, let's run that back. That would be a lot of fun together. Listen, there's still a lot of stories we can tell with him and Kevin Owens, because that's a story that I think we could tell forever. Yep. So there's a lot of things you can do with him in WWE. I think the time has come for him in AEW. And I'm not on the train that everybody else has kind of been on, where he's burying younger talent and things like that. I don't think that's the case.
Right.
I think maybe in the beginning a little bit when he was world champion, when he faced Orange Cassidy and some of those other things. But when the push came to shove, he put over MJF, and he's put over somebody. Nick Wayne. I think Nick Wayne beat him pretty quickly, and like a couple other young guys he's put over. Mm-hmm. I think it's time to hang it up. I think it's time to move on, and I think it's time for him to go back to WWE and call it a career and get put in the Hall of Fame and ride off into the sunset before you make things a lot worse than they already are.
And I think he's trying, and we see all the trademarks that he files for and all the nicknames that he has. I think the gimmicky nicknames and all that kind of stuff, I think that's also what is doing the AEW crowd in. Like I think they're probably done with the silliness, and they're done with the the hoopla and whatever that Jericho's going to bring, because it's just not. He's the only one there that's doing stuff like that, and it's starting to get old.
Yep, absolutely.
One more thing that we need to mention with AEW before we move on is Andy's favorite wrestler made some comments this week that need to be addressed on this podcast. And
which was my favorite wrestler?
Is also Levi Bachelor's favorite wrestler, our weekly segment about Goldberg that we have to talk about.
Goldberg.
So Goldberg made some comments this week about the potential of joining AEW. And I wasn't going to bring this up, but talking about Jericho and his nicknames and the cheesiness made me obviously think that Goldberg said that AEW is cheesy. And he's had several conversations with Tony Khan, but he's not ever going to go there. I'm sure, number one, that you are relieved that we're not going to see Goldberg in AEW.
Very much so, yeah.
But what do you make of everything else that he said about it?
I think a lot of it comes from the same place that Bischoff comes from. And I like Bischoff more than a lot of people do. I know he doesn't have the biggest fan base in the world all the time. But I think Bischoff is a bitter man from WCW who, I mean, let's be completely honest, he ran that company into the ground, killed WCW, and part of it was just not knowing how to manage it towards the end, letting Hogan be Hogan and all these other characters run wild and take over. I take what he says about wrestling not very well because the dude doesn't know how to wrestle. Like, the guy's not a good wrestler.
Right.
At all. He's not even a good storyteller. He's just a big dude he is, and I will always say this, he is the WCW version of the Ultimate Warrior. Great character. Fans love him. The bell rings, and he's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, name one good Goldberg match. I can only think of one.
Diamond Dallas Page, Halloween Havoc, 1998.
Okay.
That's one.
And like the only other one I really like is Survivor Series when he beat Brock in like 5 seconds, just because, not even because the match was good, just because it shocked the world.
The Roman match in Saudi was actually good, but that was because of Roman.
Yeah. My thing is, he's just not. People make fun of Bret Hart all the time for being a bitter old man about Goldberg and taking his career away and everything else. Yeah, I probably would be too, honestly, if it happened like that. So if he wants to call it cheesy, that's fine. If he wants to call it hokey, that's fine. It's just because he's never seen a good wrestling match in his life and he doesn't know what it is. And he thinks you walk out there 5 minutes in, blow up, get tired, hit a spear, jackhammer, kill the Undertaker, and then go home.
Oh, man. Well, I hope Levi Bachelor is listening and hears this rant about Goldberg. We had to get that in, especially with him talking about AEW. But if you are listening for the first time, thank you for doing that. Make sure you like the video on the YouTube channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and download the podcast to your favorite platform of choice, whether that's Podbean, whether that's Apple, Google, Spotify, all the things. We're there. Squared Circle Radio is your home for everything wrestling. Andy and I are just two wrestling fans that love to just sit here and shoot the breeze about it, and hope you guys are digging what we're doing. Again, just follow wherever you find your podcast. We would appreciate it very, very much. All right, Andy, let's get into WWE. Lots of stuff to get to. Man, we're 35 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't talked about it yet. And there's so much stuff. Let's start with the other dream match that I mentioned in the open. In 2 weeks at Backlash in France, it is happening for the first time ever. Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles will stand across the ring from each other, and the undisputed WWE Championship is on the line. You and I predicted it last week. Shout out last week to our buddy, Mr. Aaron Grisham, who joined the show. If you haven't listened to that show yet, let me just say, it is a show unlike any show we've ever done before.
It really is.
It really is. So if you're bored with what we're doing right now, just go back and listen to last week. At A Grisham 24/7 is where you can hit him on social media and tell him how much you loved his appearance. He would greatly appreciate that. But anyway, he said that he thought the LA Knight would beat AJ again after beating him at WrestleMania. You and I both went the other way, and I'm glad that we were right. Seeing AJ and Cody in 2 weeks is going to be incredible. Andy, I'm just excited to see what part of this new AJ Styles character that we get going up against Cody Rhodes, how personal this is actually going to get.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing. I don't know how, I don't know how personal it can get with only a week in between, and that week is is it a week or 2 weeks?
It's 2 weeks. So we've got this coming Friday is the contract signing. Then we have one more SmackDown, which is in France, and then the show's the next day. But you got to hope this is more than just a one-off, right?
Probably, I would say so. I mean, depending on what takes place and what happens. I think this is a great first feud for Cody.
Yep.
I think it's a great way to establish him and his title reign, and put him in there with one of the best wrestlers in the world, one of the best wrestlers of all time, in AJ Styles. Let them go at it. Give them plenty of time. I know you're probably not going to like what I'm saying. Let them wrestle a New Japan style match because those two guys know how to do it. So let them please do it, because that's what we want to see out of AJ Styles is that. But I would love to see that, and I hope it's not a one-off. Because, we talked about it before heading into WrestleMania
we thought this was going to happen, but we thought it was going to happen with an AJ Styles win at WrestleMania to kind of set this up.
Right.
AJ, we know AJ's not going to win. We know he's probably going to lose. This needs to help him be reestablished even in defeat.
Sure.
And I don't know exactly how to do that. I got to tell you, changing his music did not help at all.
No.
Which I'm sure everybody loves. You can go look at Twitter and see how much everybody loves Def Rebel, because they're so good at their job and can totally continue to make music for WWE. If you can't tell the sarcasm in my voice, then I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm hoping this reestablishes AJ as a top guy, whether he's on SmackDown or on Raw.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way to do it is you only have the one match and then you split them up. You put AJ on a different brand and then you have him strong, or you have more than one match and you have like this first match. Maybe it ends in DQ. I don't know that it will, because I think it's going to main event the show. Maybe it ends in DQ and then we have a stip match at Money in the Bank or something like that, or the Saudi show, or whichever comes first.
Right.
I think either of those things are possible. You could do, more than one match. But regardless, you brought it up. It's a great first opponent for Cody. It's very interesting that if you go back and you look at history, 2016, Roman Reigns wins the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 32. Who's his first opponent? AJ Styles. 2019, Seth Rollins wins the Universal Championship from Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Who's his first opponent? AJ Styles. There's a pattern here, folks. It works for a reason. He's phenomenal, and that is not just a nickname.
No, it's done with the purpose of making the champion look stronger by beating a very, very credible opponent. The problem is him losing so much is starting to hurt his credibility a little bit. Kind of like Shinsuke. I mean, Shinsuke came out on Raw this past week, and immediately I was like, well, another loss for Shinsuke. Here we go again. So I'm hoping with the drafts, guys like Shinsuke maybe get sent back down to NXT. Let them go in NXT. Let him be NXT champion again. Let him kind of reestablish himself. We've seen how well it's actually worked with Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
So send him back down, let him do his thing there. Karrion Kross is another guy. Send him back down to NXT and let him do his thing there. But I agree. I think this is done for a reason, because AJ is probably one of the most, if not the most reliable guys on the roster.
Yep.
And Cody is as well. So send them out there. Even on their bad day, it's going to be a good match. So just send them out there and let them do their thing.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I'm pumped. Easily two of my favorite guys. I know two of your favorite guys too. Super stoked for this match in 2 weeks. Contract signing this week on SmackDown should be quite interesting. Let me tell you what continues to be interesting on SmackDown is this Bloodline 2.0 Solo Sikoa. Just when you think you've got it figured out, holy cow, man. Like, what is this suit-wearing mob boss violent Solo Sikoa? Like, my goodness, dude, this is crazy.
This is what, honestly, seeing this makes me a little upset, because this is what he should have been all along. He should have been this,
right?
Not necessarily talking, but like he should have been this scary all along,
right? But don't you think? Don't you think? Because like, and I wrote this in my notes. Like, I think all of us say, because it wasn't just you and I saying that. It's not news. Like everybody wanted this, but don't you think? Can't you hear Triple H in your head just going, "Be patient, just be patient. It's coming." And then it anticipates it, it builds, and then boom, it hits you all of a sudden. And man, it's just, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, my only not pushback, but the only thing I would say is, could you imagine if this had happened right after he did to John Cena what he did, and we get this version of him?
Right.
How elevated and how much of a threat he would have felt. I mean, he feels like a threat now. Bloodying up Kevin Owens as bad as they did Friday night, it definitely does that. But I think if you'd have done that to Cena and had him start doing this stuff as the Bloodline enforcer, everything else, it's just I'm digging it. I'm loving what they're doing.
I'm loving adding Tama Tonga into this and letting him kind of do his own thing right now as well. I think prediction for Friday, I think we get Jacob Fatu in here as well. I think he is a part of it, and we get this new Bloodline 2.0. I think there's even a chance that they could cost Jay the title at Backlash to set up, maybe not set up, but start planting the seeds of what's to come down the line. But yeah, I'm digging this 2.0 thing.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think it's a great point. I hadn't even thought about them costing Jay because we haven't seen Jimmy since last week either. I think it could be a good thing where if they are costing Jay, they just drag Jimmy out on the entranceway and Jay sees him, and that's what costs him the match. And whatever, they don't have to touch Jay. That's all they have to do. I think it's really interesting, man. I would have been okay with him doing some of this stuff after he squashed Cena. But at the same time, it wouldn't have been as effective as it is right now because Roman Reigns is gone. That's why it's so huge right now, because Paul Heyman can't control him. Paul Heyman's freaking out. He keeps saying this is not authorized. This is, whatever. And then I said it in the open, man. Solo starts talking on SmackDown, and what happens? We want Roman chants. He's not even been gone for 2 weeks. He was the number one heel in the company. He held that title captive for 1,300 days. Everybody wanted him to lose. Everybody wanted him to just show up and defend the title. We got so mad because he was never there. And he's not even gone 2 weeks. And we want Roman chants. I can't wait for the babyface pop when he comes back.
Yeah, it's gonna be massive. I'm curious to see if they're going to play into the babyface role instantly, or if it's going to take a little while. Maybe we get the Rock turn, maybe we get a Solo turn on Roman, or whatever the case is. But yeah, when the two pops that are going to be massive is whenever he's fully babyface, and whenever Jay's music hits to save Jimmy at some point.
Yes.
And those two guys embrace, and then you put the three together.
Yes.
I think that's when things are going to get absolutely crazy, and people are going to go crazy for it. So I'm all on board for it. I think we thought once Roman lost the title, we would start to tell this Roman Reigns babyface journey, but I don't think any of us expected this as the direction that we're heading with it.
Nope. And if WrestleMania main event is any indication of pivoting, well, let's just hope that they take this pivot. If this wasn't the original plan, let's take this pivot. Let's run with this as well. Because, man, like you said, I don't know if they play into the babyface thing right away. I don't think they have to. I think all Roman has to do is just show up. The tension that is there, he doesn't have to say a word because the tension is there between him and Solo. Paul Heyman now has to pick sides. And man, could you imagine if Paul picks Solo's side when this happens, and just how much of a huge reaction Roman's going to get even more when that happens? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'll say this. I would not hate a babyface Paul Heyman.
I just don't know how that would work. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, I'll throw out a scenario a little bit that I've heard some other people talking about, I think on Busted Open as well. But we could tell this story for a little while. And let's say SummerSlam, not even this year, next year, we finally get the rematch of Roman Cody. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Cody turns heel on Mr. Roman and aligns himself with one Mr. Heyman.
Okay.
And we get a very much Homelander-esque Cody Rhodes that people have been talking about for a long time because the dude dresses like him. But we get him, we get Paul Heyman together. I mean, I think Cody even said back in the day, if he had the chance, he would have become a Paul Heyman guy. Because who in the right mind wouldn't have at that point? So I think that would be a very, very interesting way to go about it. But all I know is we don't know what to expect. I don't even think necessarily Triple H knows exactly what to expect at this point. I think he's just kind of telling this and filling it out and going not week to week, but going like to each step and just figuring it out kind of as they go along. But it's very interesting right now.
It's very clear that they have a long-term plan. And I don't want to say long-term, but a semi-long-term.
They have an end goal in mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
We knew from the minute Solo walked out last week, not this past Friday, but the Friday after WrestleMania, we knew we're getting Roman Solo at some point. Like, it's happening.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
Now it's how do we get there? How much more fun can we make it? How violent can we make it along the way? Because, man, we're talking about, we don't see blood very often, but dude, Kevin Owens was just messed up. I mean,
yeah.
And they did that.
And I didn't get to watch SmackDown Live. I just kind of saw replays of it, and I saw him in the ring busted open. I was like, man, he got messed up. Somebody messed him up in the ring, and I went back and watched it, and I was like, no, he was bleeding before he even came out there. So that lets me know that was intentional, having him come out there covered in blood. I'll say this: we talk all the time about, yes, you can use too much blood, but when it's not used and it's used in a way like this, that makes Tama Tonga look like a threat instantly, like an absolute threat instantly.
Yep.
And so that plays a massive, massive part in this as well.
And especially how well that Wade Barrett and Corey Graves are putting over that he's the son of Haku, a.k.a. Ming, a.k.a. they keep saying the toughest wrestler in the history of the business.
The guy that would kill you.
Yes. Yes. So continuing to put him over with that, I think it's just fantastic. Yeah. They had Jacob Fatu this week, most likely. Cool. That's awesome. Just keep building it. How far can we build it? What can we do, man? Like
I don't know.
It's gonna be
I'm still holding out hope for Bloodline 2.0 with Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and The Rock versus Roman, Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy.
Yep.
I think that's a great direction to go into.
Yep. I would love that very much. All right, two more quick things from SmackDown, and then we will look at Monday Night Raw. Dude, the new SmackDown Tag Team Championships, the WWE Tag Team Championship, just probably the best looking title they've come up with over the last
in a
15
long
years.
time.
Yep.
That is gorgeous. It is such a tribute to the former tag titles.
Yep.
And they are beautiful. Yep. I mean, they are absolutely beautiful. I can't get enough of them. Seeing those makes me not like the Raw ones even more because I'm like, we couldn't have gotten something like this for us as well. But yeah, they're amazing.
What I will say about the Raw ones that I do like, and I hope they trend this way on SmackDown, but we'll have to see, lots of rumors of Cody and a Winged Eagle or what have you. We've got Bayley's championship there too. What I will say about the Raw titles is they match. They look like a set. Yeah. The world titles and the tag team titles look like they belong together. Now, we don't know if it's going to be intercontinental.
And the women's, yeah.
And the women's. Yeah. We don't know if it's going to be intercontinental or U.S. on, whichever show, and if they're going to get a facelift either. I'm just saying that if we're going to redesign titles, I would like all the show titles to at least look like they belong together. That's sort of what I like about the Raw titles.
Yeah, I get that as well. I like that, but I also don't like that they look so much alike.
That's true. That's true.
I think resemble each other is very that's important and that's key. But I mean, if I saw Damian Priest with the world tag title, I don't know if I could really tell the difference between it and the actual world title from a distance.
Fair point. Yep.
I will give the SmackDown side credit for that because there are three very distinguished. Thank you.
Yes.
Belts that you can tell what they are and who they're for and things like that.
On Monday Night Raw, did you hear how quickly Michael Cole said belt? Just like that. It was hilarious. Yep. I immediately caught that from commentary. I was like, oh, that's funny.
I also, I think Luke Gallows said it in his podcast or on a podcast that they're no longer going by WWE Superstar. They're going by WWE Wrestlers now.
Yeah, not sports entertainer anymore. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they don't have to say that
Thank you
anymore.
for that.
One more big thing from SmackDown, and then we'll move on. I know we're running a little bit long on this show, but as I said at the top of the show, guys, it's loaded. We got to talk about it. There's just so much to get into. Yeah. Tiffany Stratton standing tall at the end of SmackDown, laying out both Bayley and Naomi. Woo! Company's got some faith in her, man. Goodness.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, why not? She is proven herself in the times that she's gotten to actually wrestle and be on TV and everything. She's proven herself. She was the most over woman probably outside of Becky, maybe even like a little bit more than Becky for the Elimination Chamber match. I mean, people were all for Tiffy time. My only thing is I think it being a triple threat makes sense because that way, and I hate to say this as well, but because she just came back, but I think Naomi's eating the pin.
Sure.
But I would love to have seen this down the line and we actually put the title on Tiffany. I think that would be a great way for her. I mean, she beats Bayley, wins that title, establishes herself instantly. I think that would be awesome to see that. But they are putting their faith in her. They are more than likely strapping the rocket and just letting it go. And you know what? She deserves it because she has been killing it since she got called up.
Well, the reason that she'll be in the triple threat match and she's not going to eat the pin is she's surefire winning Money in the Bank. You put that Money in the Bank briefcase on Tiffany Stratton and just cash it in that night. It's fine. It'll all work just fine. All right, as we get ready to move over to Monday Night Raw, we're seeing the QR codes coming back, and we're going to let Andy give us the rundown of those QR codes because Andy keeps up with that stuff. I do not.
I do.
Every time I see one, I just text him and say, okay, what did it say? Because Andy is all about that stuff. So checking in the QR codes, what happened this week?
So this week, pulling it up just so I can have it with me. The QR code for Raw, at least, was. Did you see the new Batman movie, the Matt Reeves Batman movie?
I did not see the movie. No.
Okay. Well, there's like the computer code thing where it asks you a question, you can type it in, hit enter, and it's like you're talking to the computer.
Oh, like a text. Text
edit thing?
Yeah.
So you scan the QR code, it gets sent to that, asks you a question of like. Basically, it's asking for like how many senses are there. You put the 5 senses in. It sends you a link. You go to a video where it's like a porch with a note that says "Remember who you are." A lot of edits and cuts and everything like that. But the thing that's very interesting is you can type other things in there and get responses as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people typed in "Howdy" for like Uncle Howdy. Mm-hmm. You click enter and it says "Hello." You type in Bray. Click enter, it says forever, I think. Or no, it says Bray, it says remembered. You type in Wyatt, it says forever. You type in red, it'll say circle. You type in buzzards, it'll say follow. So it's pointing pretty heavily to Uncle Howdy and that character coming back. And with the way and the rumors and everything circling around, I would be shocked if we aren't getting the Wyatt Six, and if they don't call themselves the Wyatt Six with Uncle Howdy being the leader, because I think the team would be very interesting if you have Uncle Howdy, Alexa Bliss, Eric Rowan, Braun Strowman, Joe Gacy, I think would be very interesting in there, and Matt Hardy. And I think those 6 together would be very interesting to see how they mesh together and what they do on the main roster.
All right, if I'm going to ask you to make a prediction, you predicted who the 6 would be. Who are they going after? Who's their first target?
I thought maybe Bobby Lashley because that was Bray's last before he got sick and couldn't be on TV. I also thought about like an easy new target to go after New Day.
Yeah.
Just kind of establish yourself there. I'm trying to think of some you could go after LA Knight and do Bray's first feud back kind of thing as well.
Yep.
But I'm just trying to, maybe if Alpha Academy, the rumor of the Creed brothers joining Chad Gable and you throw an Ivy Nile in there, they could go after them or, I don't know. There's nobody that really pops off in my mind as to who they're going after first.
Sure.
And I don't really know if you want to do Bobby Lashley because they just got done with the Final Testament and then just throw him right back into another feud like that. But I don't know. I don't know who really they would go after. If I had to guess, I would probably say someone like an LA Knight, just to reestablish themselves.
Okay, I like it. We'll be interested to see how that turns out when all that turns up and all that kind of stuff. All right, let's hit a couple of quick things from Monday Night Raw and get out of here. Again, appreciate you guys joining us very much. The Women's World Championship vacant because of the injury to Rhea Ripley, thanks to Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan was last eliminated in the Battle Royal. The new champion, the man, Becky Lynch, for the 7th time. Andy, lots of people in the IWC not happy about this win. I like it. What say you?
I do too. I mean, listen, it's the reason why AEW during their turmoil time with Punk and everything else put the title on Moxley.
Yep.
Because it's the safe bet.
Yep.
And it's the one that you could put the title on Becky and know everything's going to be fine. And the feuds from here on out are going to be fine.
Yep.
I think Liv is going to be the one to take the title off of Becky.
Sure.
And when she does, Rhea comes back and Rhea takes the title off of Liv.
Sure.
And we're back in the full circle again. Becky was the only one in the Rumble that made sense to me.
Mm.
I don't think any of the other ones made sense. The only one I would have been completely fine with is Chelsea Green. I think if Chelsea Green would have found a way to win it, would have been hilarious. Yep. And then you get to the draft and neither Raw, SmackDown, or NXT wants to draft her. And she's like, but I'm the champion standing here. And nobody still wants to draft her. I think that would be hilarious.
That right there, I'm stopping you right there. That might be the most brilliant creative for the Women's Championship that I've ever heard in my life.
Oh,
that is just beautiful.
And then you can do a Summer of Punk, but do it better because you've got a working relationship with TNA. Well, who was very popular in TNA for a while? Chelsea Green. She could show up on TNA with that Women's Championship sitting in the crowd, everything. I mean, I think there's a lot of things they could have done with that.
Man,
but
I think
that would have been great.
That's so good.
It's the reason why they put the title on Randy when they can. It's the reason why they put the title on Cena all the time.
Yep.
It's the safe bet.
Yep.
And I don't think it's Becky burying the talent. I don't think it's Becky pushing her way through. I think it's the safe bet. Put the title on Becky. Liv can take it off of her at SummerSlam.
Yep.
And then here we go.
Man, lots of things to flesh out here. Chelsea Green was also the one that I picked as would benefit from winning that Battle Royal and winning the championship in that way. Because you don't want Liv winning the title in that way. People want the title on Liv. You don't want her to win it in a Battle Royal. You want her to beat somebody. And who's she going to beat? Becky Lynch. Hello. Yeah. There's a reason that Triple H put Becky Lynch in the spot she was in at WrestleMania to get beat by Rhea Ripley. Guess what? Now we're going to turn around. We're going to do it for Liv Morgan too. Like, come on. Why not?
Yeah.
WWE is doing overseas tours. You know, Becky Lynch being the women's champion, being able to represent the brand on that, especially because you have a heel champion in Damian Priest, and if Cody's not on the same show, you got to have the babyface, blah, 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 whatever. Like, Becky Lynch makes all the sense in the world. I didn't watch the whole Battle Royal. I just caught the end of it, caught the finish. So nobody really... I didn't have anybody else that stuck out to me that could have possibly won. Obviously, a lot of people were complaining it should have been like a Shayna Baszler or something like that. Like, again, you got to make...
Do you want them to win it in a Battle Royale is the question.
Bingo. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, like, Nia winning in a Battle Royale, okay. I believe that because she's Nia Jax.
Yep.
But, I think it's the smart decision to put it on Becky. And then you can have a Liv or a Shayna or a Candice LeRae take the title off of Becky at some point.
That was my dark horse. That's who I wanted to win, but, whatever.
But I just think it makes the most sense to have Becky win that title, carry it around for a couple months, add to the prestige of it that Rhea had already created. Becky adds more to it. And then put it on a Liv, put it on a Shayna, put it on somebody that now has the chance to carry it even further.
I was also disappointed that we were in Columbus, Ohio, and did not get the return of Alexa Bliss winning that Battle Royal.
Yeah.
I was holding out hope for that one, but whatever.
But it happens. We waited for Johnny for like 6 months, so
And then this music just randomly hit.
And I was like, oh, wow, Johnny. Oh, wait, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's amazing. But one guy that we did get returning was the former Intercontinental Champion, 666 days as the Intercontinental Champion, Gunther, coming back, making a big statement. And I'm not talking about saying he's in the King of the Ring tournament. The Order of Ludwig Kaiser turning on Giovanni Vinci. Man, you know, there were releases this week and last week. This is around the time that it happens. We're not necessarily going to get into all of those. I mean, Jinder Mahal was on the list. Cameron Grimes was on the list. Not really guys that shock you. But I honestly thought, Andy, and I don't know why I thought this, I thought Giovanni Vinci might be on that train as well. And like this turn sort of pushed me even more in that direction. Not saying that he's not a good wrestler or whatever. You saw the writing on the wall a long time ago that Ludwig was the Shawn Michaels of the tag team, and he's the one that's going to get the push. And if anybody's going to go head-to-head against Gunther and try to bring Imperium down from the inside, it's Ludwig Kaiser. And I don't know, Gio just got the bad end of it, I guess.
Yeah. I think Gio is NXT bound. Probably going to stay in NXT for a while. I think this was done for the purpose of bringing in Ilya to Imperium.
Ooh, okay.
Ilya Dragunov in Imperium for a while. Listen, this King of the Ring tournament, I think, is going to be special because we know how important history is to Triple H.
Yep.
And the last King of the Ring tournament, don't get me wrong, I love Xavier Woods. He said he always wanted to win King of the Ring. I'm glad he won it. It was awesome. We've only got 2 names so far mentioned in this King of the Ring, and it's better than any King of the Ring I can remember in a long time. You've got Gunther and you've got Drew.
Yep.
If you add Sheamus and Ilya to this tournament, then if that's not your final 4 with a Gunther Drew rematch or a Gunther Ilya rematch in the finals, there's a problem because that needs to happen. And I think this is a tournament for someone like Gunther.
Yep.
To win, establish himself, get a championship opportunity, and then go and kill Damian Priest. And I think that's the direction we are heading in with him.
Just like it's a slam dunk that Tiffany Stratton is going to be Money in the Bank, I think Gunther wins this tournament hands down. I think the issue might be putting Ilya in the finals with him. Ilya Dragunov, the fantastic rivalry that they had back in NXT, bringing that back. While I think that is a great idea, that might not be the best first thing for Ilya to do. Even though he was on the Raw after WrestleMania, he beat Shinsuke. We know who he is. That crowd at least knew who he was. But bringing him in, he's going to have a great showing against Gunther, obviously. But it just depends on what you want to do with him. I don't necessarily think going to the finals and losing is the best. If it were me, I would have Sheamus Gunther rematch in the finals of the tournament. Let those guys run it back one more time. Sheamus is not going to hurt from getting beat by Gunther. Just let it happen.
Listen, that you're not going to sway me away from a Gunther Sheamus match any day of the week. So I'm fine with that. I do think though, because it doesn't look like we're getting Punk McIntyre at Backlash. At least as of right now, it doesn't look like we're getting that. I would love it if we get Drew Gunther in the final and somebody comes out and costs Drew, keeps him from winning it, and it's Punk again. And we just continue down this spiral of just adding more fire to the flames of Drew McIntyre. I think that might be the direction they also head in.
I think it's amazing. It's one of those things where I can't wait to see what CM Punk does next to Drew McIntyre. It's amazing. You're just waiting. Awesome. Yeah, you're waiting for it. You're just waiting for it to happen. I love it.
And now after the video after the All In footage has aired, I cannot wait for the next Drew McIntyre promo with Punk in the ring. I cannot wait for him to say something about a scapegoat, and I'm gonna lose it when he does it.
Yep, he for sure will. We mentioned the tag team titles earlier. They were on the line this week. Awesome Truth picking up the win over DIY. And it's really interesting, Andy. I know that Ciampa had his reaction afterwards. He didn't want to shake their hand, and then he walked out on Gargano in their backstage interview. I know that we saw that. Commentary really alluded to the fact that this could be DIY's last chance at the titles, and I don't get why they were heavily alluding to that. I feel like they were really setting up this Ciampa thing almost like unnecessarily. Like, I think you could have had the Ciampa thing happen anyway, and it makes sense. But this was DIY's first shot at the titles other than the ladder match at WrestleMania. So I don't know what the point was other than the Ciampa thing.
Unless they're splitting them up in the draft.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, they could split them up in the draft. I thought DIY was a shoo-in to win the titles. I thought they were winning them. I thought they were going to take them off Awesome Truth. I know we joked about it and we liked it in the beginning. I'm kind of tired of the DX stuff at this point. I think it was funny for the WrestleMania entrance.
I think now that Awesome Truth has beat them, I think we're done with it.
We're done. Yep. Like, we need to move on from it. If they split up and we head to a Johnny Ciampa match at WrestleMania under Triple H, sure, I am totally fine with that. I don't know. The only thing I can think of why they would allude to that as much as they were is because they do that right before the draft. I mean, they did it with New Day when they split up New Day.
Yeah.
So I could kind of see the same thing happening with DIY.
And if they split them up, like, it's fine. I just, I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Honestly,
it was just
like,
weird.
Ciampa's better as a heel.
He's way better as a heel.
So
for sure.
So I think you have him go heel for a while, and then something happens where he costs Johnny, or maybe we even get to the Rumble and Johnny throws him out in the Rumble, and then there's your excuse. You're heading off to WrestleMania now, something like that. I don't really know, but it's something different. It's something interesting, and they were hot for a while, but I feel like the crowd's kind of cooled on them a little bit. And so maybe it's time to break them up and have them go off and do singles things.
Oh yeah, because that crowd was popping big time for Awesome Truth, man. There was listen to that crowd and like, man, they would have been disappointed if DIY would have won the titles, So they're fully behind Awesome Truth, so I understand not putting the titles on DIY. I've got a soft spot for Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in that rivalry.
I do too. I love them.
I just want it to be done right, and I trust Triple H to do it right. I don't know, kind of interested.
I just don't want their last match to be that cinematic match. So please do another one.
Listen, we're going to agree to disagree on that one because I thought that was a fantastic match. I don't want it to be
I hated it.
I don't want it to be their last one either, but
yeah,
I thought it was great.
It's not, and I know they couldn't do anything else because of the times that we were in.
Right.
But that's not how that story should have ended.
No.
Was with that.
Agreed.
Was with that match. We should have got something different. So can we tell that a WrestleMania, please? Listen, we need to have a WrestleMania where on one card, one night, we get Ciampa and Gargano, and night 2 we get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. We need that to happen. Make it for the U.S. and the Intercontinental Championship, and
heck, make it for the 2 world titles.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Why not?
I mean, I don't want Cody to lose the title anytime soon, or necessarily Damian Priest or Gunther or whoever, but 2 years from now, sure, why not? You know what? The Nashville WrestleMania, if my main event night 1 is Ciampa Gargano for the world title and my night 2 is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the WWE Championship, I will be a happy man.
Greatest WrestleMania of all time. Book it now.
It's better than singing Roman Brock for the 40th time like we did at 38. I don't know if anything's going to be better than Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn because that was, or Kevin Owens and Stone Cold because that was awesome. But I could do without another Roman Brock match.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. As you can tell, Andy and I like to fantasy book a whole lot of stuff.
We do.
We really had planned on doing a segment on last week's show and this week's show, fantasy booking next year's WrestleMania, but clearly there's just so much content that we just cannot fit it in. But if you dig fantasy booking much like we do, the MCWF is your stop. That is our fantasy booking show that airs on Thursdays, wherever you find your podcast. So not on our YouTube channel, but wherever you find your podcast. Andy and I take current day rosters. We've drafted them into 2 separate shows. Fantasy book their storylines, a 6-month story arc. We're about to finish up month 3, so the halfway point of the season. You don't want to miss it. Go check it out if that's something that you are digging. Man, so much stuff. What a show. We will do our best to keep up with everything. Hope you guys are digging what we're doing, man. Follow us on social media at SQCircle_radio. You see it there on your screen if you're on the YouTube channel. You also see our individual handles. Make sure you follow us as well. We will do our best to keep cranking out the content. Andy, it's a lot of stuff, but we're here for it, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot happening every week, but it's better than there being nothing to talk about in wrestling at all. So we are in great times right now. We're heading into Backlash. We're heading into Double or Nothing. We're heading into King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring. We are heading into a very, very busy time of the year, but there's nothing else I'd rather be talking about than wrestling. So I am all for it.
That is 100% right. Yeah. Coming up next week, man, we've talked about it all episode. The draft starts Friday. It continues on Monday. We'll drop a new episode on Tuesday. We'll recap the draft. We'll preview Backlash for next weekend. Maybe we'll play some Backlash trivia. We haven't done trivia in a couple of weeks. Maybe we'll bring that back next week. It's going to be a loaded show. We mentioned the MCWF. Make sure you're checking that out. It's available on the same feed. Our buddy Tyler Peters hosts that with us. It's a whole lot of fun. Just make sure you're checking that out. Go to our Pro Wrestling Tees store. That's ProWrestlingTees.com/Squared Circle Radio. That QR code that's on your screen there, you can just scan that. Go buy yourself a t-shirt. We would appreciate it. Yep, right there it is. Andy's showing you right there. Go check that out. We would appreciate it. Sports Wire Radio. Who could forget Tom and the gang over there? That is Sports Wire with a Z. SportsWireRadio.org. Listen live all the time. Andy, anything else to add, man, before we sign off?
I don't think so. Just another busy week, but, we're here. We love talking about it. And just a shout out real quick to the Grove softball team that is currently 4-0 on the season, which has never happened before. And we'll see where we're at next week when we come back and talk. But right now we're 4-0, so we're going to ride out the wave.
4-0, the softball team. It's because you haven't had me play yet. Once I get out there, you'll lose. In any of it. Oh, my goodness. Thank you guys for joining us so much. Again, if this is your first time listening, go back and check out past episodes. We'd appreciate it. For Mr. Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. This is Squared Circle Radio. We'll catch you guys down the road.